All right, what is going on? We are live, people, and we have a lot to talk about today. Things coming soon to San Diego, news about what's happening in San Diego, some San Diego real estate market stuff, and then also big news. There's a new program from CalHFA that actually can give first-time homebuyers here in California a 20% down payment. And of course, there are rules and stipulations involved, but it's a very unique and very interesting program that I'm excited to get into with one of my very good friends, Mr. Derek Evans, friend of the show. How you doing, Derek?
What's up, brother? Doing good. The market's interesting. Bond buyers seem like they're back, and then they seem like they're not, and then they seem like they're back, and then they seem like they're not. But inflation has been kind of all over the place, so that part is what it is. I'm sure we'll get into it.
Yeah, and there are a lot of reasons why I like having you on the show, but what's cool is you give a much broader perspective on things. Some of the articles you sent me are not even really having to do with the US. So I'm excited to get in. You're going to educate me on this just as much as we're going to educate everyone. Of course, as always, if you are tuning in, let us know where you are tuning in from. We want to know. We have people that comment and watch from all over the US. We get people from Canada. I'm under contract with some buyers from Canada right now that started by watching this channel, which is really, really cool. So, dude, we have a lot to talk about today. I have more slides pulled up than I've ever had pulled up. So let's just dive right in. Let's see, I haven't done this in a while. Now I need to figure this out again. And I've had some issues on my channel with my video breaking up. So I got a brand new system. Hopefully we don't have that issue again. So fingers crossed, we're going to be good to go. But look, you guys, there's a lot to talk about, starting with some San Diego news. And how freaking cool is this? San Diego State Aztecs made it to the Final Four. This is history in the making. Derek, are you excited about this?
First time ever, man. When we had Kawhi Leonard, we only made it to the Elite Eight, guys. Not only that, playing a Final Four match against a 9 seed. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Now, Florida Atlantic is strong, no doubt about it. They're playing the tournament of their lives. But I think that the San Diego State Aztecs have a legitimate shot to be playing next Monday night for the whole thing.
How crazy is that? Yeah, I remember I was at San Diego State. That's where I met my amazing wife, Stephanie. And we were going there the year that Kawhi Leonard was playing, the first year they ever made it into the Sweet 16. So to see them come this far is extremely, extremely exciting. And you better believe I'm going to be watching that next game live, and I could not be any more excited.
Stoked.
All right. And from there, have you seen this? Have you heard about Aptera Motors? I mean, check out these cars. So this is a San Diego-based company. Aptera Motors. Let's see. This is maybe better here. Aptera Motors is a San Diego-based company, and they are making cars of the future. What's crazy about this is, so these cars are built 100% for efficiency. So for efficiency of driving, for efficiency of gaining energy and using energy, for efficiency of building, and they're actually going to be manufacturing these cars here in Carlsbad. So I'm not sure what percentage of the manufacturing process, but it's pretty wild. These cars have, so I actually want to show you what these cars look like. Look at these. These look like spaceships.
What?
And these are going to be available for less than $30,000. So what's interesting here is they just launched their first look at their first edition that's going to be available soon. These are going to be, I believe, $26,000. And you could actually put down I think it's $1,000 deposit now to get in line. So these are going to be very, very interesting. What do you think? Are these going to catch on or not?
My guess is that, like, if there was a picture of you and me sitting in this car, it would probably not look very comfortable. That's my guess. My guess is these cars are, you say efficiency, I don't hear the word comfort. I hear you're going to sacrifice a comfortable, cushy seat for efficiency. But for people who are into efficiency, or people who are smaller, who aren't 6'4" and 235 pounds.
Sorry, Shaq.
Shaq ain't fitting in that car.
Yeah.
None of the guys in the SDSU basketball team are going to fit in there.
Yep.
But if you can, the only question I'd have is just like crash test ratings, so like my Tesla is pretty small car for me to be in. I wouldn't be in a car that small except for the exceptional crash test rating, safest car ever tested. So for me, that's important. I love so I thought for sure you were showing me a flying car when you first. I was like, oh, here it is. Finally, I've been waiting for this forever. When are we going to fly? We've got the drone technology. Put it on a car, slap it on a car. I'll get in there. But these types of vehicles are the future. There's no question about it. Traffic is just getting worse and worse and worse. And obviously the speed at which government creates roads and sort of outlets for that are not at the same pace at which it accrues. So you need smaller, more efficient vehicles like this. And I think that stuff like this is going to be more of the future. If you go 30 years in the future, you'll see a bunch of cars like this in the road, is my guess.
Yeah, I think in my mind, and the crash test rating is actually very important that I didn't really think of. But in my mind, it's like look, you got solar panels, you got like, I think I freezing on you. Are we good?
We got you. You're back.
So they have 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. They have solar panels so they can charge while they're driving. Very cool concept.
That's cool. I like that.
I did want to show this as well. Are you a frequent flyer? How often do you go to the airport?
2, 3, maybe 4 times a year tops.
Do I have you? Did I lose you?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me, buddy? You froze on me. I'm not sure if you can hear me or not, but I can't hear you. Fun times.
Can you see me now?
I got you.
Dang it.
Must be the new crib. Kind of going in and out. So let's see here. Let me see. I'll take the microphone until Dan comes back with us here. So this $2.7 billion T1 project to transform the airport sounds great. It'll probably be great one day, but how many years of construction do we have to sit through? I mean, if you went to Terminal 1, what was that, for 2 or 3 years they were working on that. Now it's in Terminal 2. I don't know. Hard to say how long these things will take. Oh, I think we lost Dan completely, or we lost me. One of the two. Either we lost Dan or we lost me. Or the stream lost me. Let me see if I have the ability to present. Everyone can see and hear you. Okay. Share my screen. Dan, I'm not sure what you want me to do here, buddy. So I'm going to go ahead and just give the people the goods. I don't know if it's going to allow me to do this or not. I don't know if you can see my screen or not right now. And I'm not sure if this is sharing this tab to StreamYard. Okay, cool. So
are you getting along by yourself? This has been
I'm trying.
Oh man, I had issues with my cable connection last time. Now I'm having issues with my internet connection. So fingers crossed that doesn't happen again. But as a previous radio host, I'm sure you covered it pretty well.
Well, I wasn't sure what to do. I don't know if you can see the article that I went to, because I knew I'm pretty sure I saw this in your list. So I'm just going to go there and do it. I don't know if it's up there or not.
Now I have your screen up.
Oh, this is my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, that is my screen. So that's where I was going. I was just, fall back kind of. Hey, let's talk about this, because you see these headlines, right? Home prices cool in January.
Yeah.
Even falling in some cities. Oh my gosh, prices are falling. I always like to read these and actually see what the numbers say, because home prices cool in January. Well, why would you say that if literally this is the first sentence, Dan? Home prices cooled in January, up only 3.8%.
Yeah. I didn't even take your screen away here. But I love that you brought this one up, because here's the thing, and I say this over and over and over again. When you are looking at January close sales, that means those are homes that close in December, which is always one of the slowest months out of the year. And we're coming off of several months of home prices going down. You did see in January that things for sure cooled down, but they accepted an offer a month prior. So when you actually look at what closed in February, you want to see this? I think I might even be blowing your mind on this one. Let's see.
Do it.
Single family homes here in San Diego from January of 2023 to February of 2023 went up from $830,000 to $885,000.
Goodness gracious.
So what we're talking about here is at the very beginning of the year, and this is something that I experienced, I know that you experienced, the very beginning of the year, it was like everyone that was sitting on the sidelines for the previous couple of months, 6 months, a lot of them could afford to buy a house. They're like, you know what, rates are going up. Like, let's see what's going to happen. There's talk about a recession. We're not used to 6 and 7% mortgage interest rates. Let's just wait and see what happens. The beginning of this year, a lot of those people were like, okay, the market's obviously not going to crash. We're kind of getting used to that 6 to 7% number. Let's make it happen. Let's go find a house. Let's go get an offer accepted. And in that month, I had 3 clients who got an offer accepted between 50 to 100,000 over asking, and 2 of the 3 had to waive appraisal to get that offer accepted. So we saw a mad rush at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, we had entire weekends where I know we were sending out, over 20 offers, and we wouldn't get any accepted, or we'd have 1 to work on Monday, and stuff like that was happening. So it was definitely challenging. What this article is talking about, though, was year over year. So it is comparing this past January to the January before that. And the reason why I actually think that's important in this context is because we know last January, which means, as you said, people getting in contract into the previous December, rates were half then, literally half or less than half of what they are today. So rates have doubled, and prices nationally are still up almost 4% year over year. And if you want to pick it apart, okay, let's pick it apart. San Diego's on here as one of the cities that's down, okay, in that year over year calculation, minus 1.4%.
Yep.
So rates double in a high cost county like San Diego, and prices go down 1.4%. That also, you also have to take in effect the war that's going on, geopolitical stuff, inflation, other fear-mongering things, stock markets come in. There's a whole slew of things that sort of work against sentiment, and real estate prices are down 1.4%. So I know I came on here and I said this before. Dan, I'm going to take my victory lap right now. Interest rates do not crash real estate markets. They create opportunities in real estate markets. And that's it. And you can go back as far as you want, as far as they collected the data back into the 50s. You can look at it. Every time rates spike up, prices don't go down very much, if at all. And sometimes prices just continue marching higher. So we can't expect when rates go up that that's going to create some sort of crash in prices. It just doesn't happen. It's never happened. It's not going to happen. It's not the way that it works, because at the end of the day, you do have to live somewhere. So it's about options. It's not about price. Oh, this is a crazy price and a crazy rate. Well, sorry, it's about options. What other option do you have to live in a house like this? Is there another cheaper option? And if there isn't, then okay, you're not going to live like this. You have to live some other way, in some smaller house or some other place. So it's more about options. And when people constantly tell me that we're going to crash, just like 2008, I hear that all the time. This is the highest gauge on this, metric since 2008 or whatever. People just don't understand the amount of options that everyone had back then, how many rentals there were, because everyone was a landlord. Everyone already owned a home. So of course there was tons of sellers. Right now we have tons and tons of qualified people. Dan, I have people who are so qualified and they've been renting for years, trying to figure this market out. I'm like, listen, you're not going to figure it out. You're not going to pick the perfect spot where prices are down and rates go to 2%, that day's not going to happen. It's not.
And if it
rates go
does,
down,
I mean,
the market will
prices are going
switch
to
higher.
plummet. Prices are going to skyrocket when that happens.
Absolutely go nuts. In fact, even right now, if rates drop to 4% next week, the market would go completely crazy, even though rates would still be higher than they were a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
The market would go nuts because rates are at 4%. A year ago, you're like, oh, rates at 4%. Oh, the market will crash for sure. If rates go that high. Oh, no one will pay that much. Perspective matters. Rates going up creates perspective. Demand for housing doesn't change because of the costs. You still need it. You got to have a roof over your head. People want to live a certain way, especially people who live in high cost areas. And so my victory lap is over. I conclude the checkered flag. The market's not crashing because of rates.
No, it's not. And here's a crazy thing is, for one, Jerome Powell is on record saying that he was trying to crash the real estate market. It's not happening. We're seeing it real time. People are not selling their houses because they don't want to get rid of that 3% mortgage interest rate. So that's why we're not seeing inventory going up. And that's like one of the biggest factors. But the difference between, just for perspective, difference between a 3% mortgage interest rate and a 7% mortgage interest rate, it's going to be about 50% more expensive to own the same house if you're putting 20% down. It's almost exactly 50% more expensive. So this is a huge, like a drastic change in affordability. And it's absolutely bonkers to think that that hasn't really had a massive effect on housing prices. Like 1.4%, like you said. And real quick, before we get into anything else, I gotta shout out to our friends on here. My buddy Brandon Blankenship out of Chicago, great YouTube channel. Montas, how do you pronounce that
last name? What's up, Mantis?
Mantis, what's going on, Mantis? Pre-order for the Aptera is $100 US, $100, or what's USD?
United States dollars.
Via referral link. Okay, throw down your referral link. Nice. Best channel for more info, Aptera Owners Club on YouTube. I'm definitely going to check that out. I appreciate that, Thomas. Thanks for throwing that in. Nice. Yes, so the market, it's been interesting. And I will say it changes a lot. So yes, there was a mad rush in January. It's mellowed out for sure since then. It seems like ever since the bank collapse happened, buyers aren't scared to not visit homes, but they're visiting homes and they're maybe just taking a little bit more time to pull the trigger. Mm-hmm. They're maybe thinking, is this really the exact investment that I want to make? And so that's kind of what I'm seeing right now. And I feel like that's probably going to continue over the next couple of months. There are like no homes for sale. There are buyers going out there, but they're not like throwing everything at every house to try and get it landed.
Well, like an example of one that I'm working on with your team, where we got an escrow and they really had to put in a lot of offers and they were coming here, they're moving here. One of them got a job here and they'd sold their house. They're in escrow, selling their house back east, and they had to get into something, and they could not rent the things they want to do with the property. It was not possible. So they needed to buy something and they were being extremely aggressive. They're very qualified. And it was tough. It was very tough, but they're in escrow now. They're in great shape. They're going to get this home that's actually the best one. It's a really blessing all the way around. But there's tough stuff like that. I'm seeing more and more people like that, Dan, who have already sold their house. I've got another one who's been writing offers. They have $1.2 million down, and they can't get an offer accepted. Okay, so it's been tough for a lot of people. And then now on top of that, we see rates have come in a little bit. Rates are coming down. We're back into the 5s for FHA and VA, which is great. I locked multiple VA loans in the past couple of weeks in the 5.5% range. Terrific, right? That stuff's great. We're now back in the high 5s today or so. But so you've got rates coming down, and they're coming out with a massive, program for home buyers for essentially down payment assistance. Now, I hate to break the news, but this isn't the right solution. Okay. If the goal of the government is to create more affordable homes, you don't go give people a bunch of money to buy homes with. That's not how you create affordability. If the government really wanted to create affordability, they would give incentives to sellers. Imagine that. Can you imagine that? Hey, if you sell your house in California this year, we'll give you $25,000 or something like that. or we'll give you 2% of the
What about
value.
a rate buy down on your next purchase? Because that's a
Yeah.
lot of the fear, right?
Use it for whatever you want, but the state is going to give you 2%. So if you sell your $2 million house, we're going to give you $40,000 extra dollars just for selling your house. That is what you would need to do if you were going to help prices come down, because you need reasons for sellers to sell. And right now, sellers don't have enough reasons to sell. They just don't, because again, it's about options. What's the alternative?
Yeah,
Okay. So
that's
what's the
interesting.
difference?
It sounds crazy. You sound like a crazy man right now.
I am a crazy, but it's, but it's like, what are your options? Okay.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of people who they get pre-approved and they're like, oh yeah, I really want that house. But then they come back and like, oh gosh, I have this sweet little payment here. You know what? Maybe I can make this place work. I can do this. I can do that. You see that happen all the time, because it's like, well, what are my options? I have option A is to stay here. Option B is to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
If option B isn't better, then I'm going to stick with option A. I always say, Dan, that things change when plan B starts to look better than plan A. That's what causes things to change. Anything. So if plan B doesn't look better than plan A, things aren't going to change. And when you see sellers not wanting to sell, that is your biggest macro clue that you're near a bottom in any market. If sellers are not willing to sell, let's say we're selling Cokes on the street or Sprites, whatever, and you have sellers who won't sell. The buyers only want to pay 50 cents. No seller will sell it for 50 cents. They only want $1, right? But one seller comes up and says, I'll take 50 cents. That means that you've got one person who's going to get that price, and that's it, right? So when there's a lack of sellers at a certain price level, and this is for any security, any stock, anything, that is a clue to you, a very big clue that prices are going to go up, because price is always looking for liquidity. And right now, at these prices, down 1.4% year over year, sellers aren't interested. They just aren't. So people are selling only when they have to, for certain reasons, relocating, things like that. There's always going to be some people selling, but we don't have people going, you know what, now is a great time to sell. And that's the difference. So until we get more sellers, you're going to continue to see prices climb. You're going to continue to see the market be tough for buyers.
Yeah, and there's a lot of validity to that for sure. Let's take a little break here, because I think this program is very interesting. And side note, I'm doing a full video on this program that's going to be released on Friday. So I'll have a bunch more information. I'm sure you have a bunch of information out there. If not, you're going to be making a ton of videos on this new program, because it's everywhere right now. But can you give us a quick breakdown? What is this program? Who is it good for? And I'm sure we'll try and pick it apart a little bit too. But I will start by saying, there are a lot of down payment assistant programs out there. I don't think I've ever told one of my clients, yeah, this is a good fit for you. Not that it's not a good fit for anybody, but I'm very skeptical of these programs. And when I look at this program, it is very interesting. There are plenty of negatives and plenty of things that you need to consider, and plenty of negative impacts it could have in our market, which we're definitely going to talk about. But it's very interesting. And I want you to take a moment to just let the people watching know, what is this program and how can people utilize it?
Yeah. So CalHFA, this is a California housing agency that provides down payment assistance programs. And there's a bunch of programs that are sort of evergreen. They're always going to be there. They're well funded for years, in advance and things like that. And then they try new ones sometimes, like this one, where they're saying, hey, we'll give you up to 20% towards down payment or closing costs. And the way that it works is, if you just have to qualify for their traditional, conventional, so this doesn't work for VA or FHA. This is just conventional. You need to have a minimum 680 credit score. But there's some things that are definitely good about it, because you can get a lot of money that you don't have to pay back until you refinance or sell the home. And there's actually a clause in there that you can refinance one time and subordinate the silent second. So let's say we'll use this for easy math. Let's say you are buying $1 million house. The state would give you up to $200,000, okay, if you fit in the box for this, in order to buy this house, which you could use towards down payment and or closing costs. Pretty cool, right? You don't have to make a payment on that $200,000. Okay. So you would just pay it back either when you refinance, do a cash out refinance, or do a second refinance, because you can do one rate and term refinance to get a lower rate and subordinate the second and keep it in place, or you sell the home and then you have to pay them back. Now, when you pay them back, you pay off that lien that they gave you, that silent second, and then you also have to pay them a portion of the upside, depending upon what income bracket you're in, because you have to income qualify for this. And that's one of the things that's tough. I think there will be a lot more people using this program in other areas. San Diego does not have a good ratio for household income to housing prices. And so a lot of people are over, who can qualify to buy a house, they're over the maximum required, maximum allowed income. But depending upon where you fit, if you're between 80 and 100%, you have to give up 20% of your equity. And if you're under 80% of the average income for the area, then you'll only have to give up 15% of the equity that you earned during the time that you owned the home. So that's kind of the big thing.
The maximum income requirement as $211,000, which seems pretty decent for these types of programs.
Yeah.
Is that household or is that individual?
The household.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that does make it more tough. Okay.
Yep. So that's not too bad, right? Like that's, you can qualify for quite a bit if you have a couple $100,000. So a lot more people will qualify for this than in the past when those numbers were much, much lower. So that's definitely helpful. So 680 minimum credit score. The interest rates on these programs are a little bit higher, guys. This is how they're funded ultimately. Like if you were just getting a regular conventional loan, your rate would be lower than if you use this type of program. They do have to fund it somehow, and that's one of the ways that they fund it on the front side. All borrowers must occupy the home. So you can't have a non-occupying co-borrower. Your dad can't co-sign for you or something like that, or your rich uncle or whatever. Everyone who's on the loan has to occupy the home and must be considered a first-time buyer. What is a first-time buyer? It's not exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah.
It's defined as someone who has not had an ownership interest in a principal residence. Okay. So you could have an ownership interest in an investment property, but you haven't had an ownership interest in a principal residence or your primary residence, or resided in a home owned by a spouse in the last 3 years.
Yep.
So that's the first-time buyer definition. You can see depending upon your income.
The thought that you can, let's just say, someone looking at this program, let's say they're looking for a budget-friendly house. They're looking for a condo in San Diego. They have about a $500 or let's say $600,000 budget. Like you can find that in San Diego. Absolutely. Yeah. The thought that you could, in theory, buy a $600,000 condo, get a 20% down payment from the government that you don't have to repay back for 30 years is pretty mind-boggling. Now, of course, there are negatives that we're gonna get into, but it's like you're buying it. It's almost like you have the opportunity to get your foot in the door in the San Diego housing market at 20% under value and not have to have a big savings in your pocket. So tell me, what are some of the negatives?
So, I mean, there's very little downside here, honestly, as a buyer. If you're a seller accepting this offer, that's where some of the negatives might come in. But if you're a buyer using this program, it will take a little bit longer, to execute an escrow like this. Like you can maybe get it done in 30 days, but you're probably going to need a little bit more.
Sure.
So that's one thing. But as far as just the way that they've laid it out, bringing in 20% that you don't have to make payments on, that could save you quite a bit. I mean, if you figure, approximately $60 per 10,000. So in your example, we're getting 120,000 for the down payment, which is going to save us $720 a month. That's quite a bit. That's let's say $8,000 a year. So we're saving $8,000 a year. So if it goes up $100,000 in 3 years, we've saved $25,000, and we only have to give CalHFA $20,000, on the appreciation. So, it can work out. It can actually pencil well for the buyer because you don't have to make the payment on that thing.
Yeah.
And so that can be really, really helpful from a cash flow perspective and from an overall, what I call total cost perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You look at buying a home, and we look at what is my total cost to own this home. It's not the price you paid and that you got it in contract for. It's how much you actually paid out of your pocketbook for it after you made your money and paid taxes. So I don't think that's really truly a downside. The downsides are more, you know, how long will this be around for?
Mm-hmm.
My guess is, bro, I mean, if it lasts a month, I'll be shocked.
So $300 million set aside. San
350.
Diego,
Yeah.
or yeah, 300 to 350.
Mhm.
Let's say the average borrower is taking $100,000, which is more than likely going to be closer to 150 or 200. It would be
Yeah.
my assumption. But let's just say $100,000. So then that would be
100,000.
3,000 people that could utilize this program. And San Diego is about 10% of the state. So you could say about 300 people in San Diego might have the opportunity to utilize this program, which is great. But like you said, like that's going to be gone like that. And the downside is you can apply for this program, you can get that application approved, but you can't actually get the what's the word I'm looking for, like the commitment
can't
towards
reserve the
those funds
funds.
until you actually get an offer accepted, which adds risk factor on your end. Could you imagine the emotional devastation of going through this process, finding the right property, getting under contract just to learn, sorry, the money's all gone? And then
Yeah.
the other end of this is, I think the fourth is this is going to be treated very similar to how VA loans have been treated over the last, like in the peak of the pandemic. And sellers and listing agents are going to say this is a more risky offer. So if there are competing offers, let's go with this other one, even though it's not quite as much money, because we have more confidence that they're going to be able to close on this home. So
Yes.
there definitely are some nuances that make it challenging. And then here's the other thing, like you were talking about, we should be promoting people selling homes so that there's more inventory. What do you think someone's going to do when they buy a home with this? That I wouldn't want to sell my home for 30 years because you don't have to pay anything on it until you sell or refinance a second time or change that, like some of these like kind of nuanced things. So I think it's really going to stick people in a specific property for a longer period of time too.
It's tough because, as a listing agent, it would be very hard to accept an offer like this unless it's the only one you had, you know,
Yeah.
because you don't know if the offer is even good until after you accept it. It's chicken and the egg. I mean, what do you do? What should you do? I mean, it's a catch-22. You can't lock the loan and you can't reserve the funds to make sure you have them for the program until your offer is accepted. So it's going to be very difficult for offers to get accepted. I will tell you what is going to happen as a result of this, Dan. This right here is going to for sure push housing prices higher. And here's the reason why. It's going to get more people in the market. It's going to get more people open houses. It's going to get more people writing offers. And if you're a listing agent and you've got a CalHFA Dream for All shared appreciation loan program offer, you could still use it against the other offers.
Yeah,
It's still
sure
an
can.
offer to multiple counter. You could say, hey, I got somebody's offering this over here, 20% down.
Even
And
though
it's
they have
true.
zero, like, actual obligation or thought that they're going to accept that offer. That absolutely happened.
But you can 100% tell other offers that I've got a 20% down offer at this much on over here. So you have to beat that one. And so what happens when things like this come in is that, and especially when a buyer is getting 20% essentially not for free, but at a steep discount, steep discount, they'd be more apt to write a crazy offer, right? Because you don't have to use it all towards necessarily the down payment. It can go towards closing costs and so forth. So this actually encourages people to maybe even make a little bit crazier of an offer, and get into this thing. So now LTVs and things like that do need to make sense. You wouldn't be able to use cash to pay for appraisal gap, but if you had a little bit of money and you're getting 20%, you could use that for appraisal gap. So I could just see a lot more buyers hitting the market, a lot more buyers being aggressive, trying to get this program before it's gone. So they're just out there just firing away. And what that's doing is driving up prices for everybody. So that is for sure going to happen. And that's the one thing that everyone needs to be braced for, whether you're going to do this program or not. And I'm not trying to poo-poo it at all.
Yeah.
Very few people will
Being
get
realistic. Like I know exactly how this all works out.
Realistically, most people aren't going to get it.
Yeah.
But does that mean you shouldn't try? Definitely not. Like try, like let's try. If you want to go for it, let's go for it. But somebody's got to win the lotto. You know what I mean? let's get our ticket. Let's do this because they're going to give the money to somebody. And so I do think you should try. But that said, just be careful of the market over the course of the next couple of months. I don't think this is going to last a couple of months, but we'll see. We're going to see prices surge, especially if rates continue to just trickle lower. That would do it probably all by itself. But with this thing, bringing buyers to the table from all over the place, I mean, this makes it possible for anyone to buy, really, if you have the income. And so that it sounds like a great thing, but it is going to cause a lot more competition out there, brother.
It's also a little bit of an increased risk as well, but it's similar to like a 100% finance VA loan. If you buy a house, zero skin in the game, sure, you're paying closing costs, but when you get the keys to that house, you have zero equity on that property. And if prices come down 5% over the next 3 years and you have to sell in 3 years, that's not a ton that it's come down, but that could put you in a very negative situation. You ideally want to you have to be mindful of the fact there's going to be closing costs. There's going to be more than likely real estate agent commissions when you sell your house. So if you're looking for short term, this is probably not the way to go. Same with, we are a big military area. We have a lot of people relocating to San Diego. The Navy is the #1 employer in the city of San Diego. And yet when I have potential VA buyers call me and say, Dan, I want to buy a house. We're only going to be in San Diego 3 years. We're 3 years. We're going to get 100% financed. To be honest, I give them my honest opinion and say, you know what? Let's run through these scenarios for you, because to me, even though I'm very bullish on this market, we just bought a house 3 weeks ago. We could have rented for the next 2 years if we thought prices were coming down, but we made that bet because I really truly believe prices are going to go up. But if you're doing zero down and you have to move in 3 years, there's absolutely some risk there that I personally wouldn't be willing to take. And I can't suggest someone else to be like, yeah, go ahead, do it. Let's buy a house so that I can get some more real estate commission. We're not about that over here.
Yeah, no, it's an important point to make, because you have to look at it like, again, what's plan A and what's plan B, And if we're going to rent, okay, what kind of place we're going to rent? We're going to spend $3,000 a month. Okay, we're going to be here for 3 years. That's $100,000. Do we want to for sure flush $100,000 down the toilet, like 100% guaranteed it's not going to get us anything at all? It's totally going to be dead money. Or do we want to buy a house, maybe pay $10,000 or $12,000 in closing costs, and then take our chances that we get a tax deduction and we get a few other things that this thing will make sense? A lot of times for that type of thing, I do a lot of VA.
Yep.
I'll make sure that person knows, like, hey, if you don't think you'll be here in 3 years, you want to take a look, do a rental survey on any property before you buy it. How much could you rent it for? Make sure that that's at least close to what your payment is, because it's not the same for every house, where like, oh, well, I can probably just rent it for what the payment is. A lot of houses are like that, especially if you buy with the VA loan, you get a low rate, you don't have PMI, all that, but not all. So make sure you get one where you have that, so that we at least have that plan B or plan C.
Yeah.
Hey, we can't sell it, so we can't stay. So plan C is we rent it. Make sure we have that. And most people in the military understand entry strategy, exit strategy. We got to have exit strategy, and we got to have our tails covered, whichever direction we need to go. So that would be my biggest advice in that scenario, is just make sure you have multiple ways out,
Yeah.
go in there.
No, that's a good point. It's totally nuanced. And there are situations where it does make sense. Where I think it gets really nerve-wracking for me is if you're literally putting every penny that you have into that property and you make enough to just get through each month. You need to make sure, like you said, you need to have that plan B, because I think it's very realistic to think that would be a good investment, but you got to make sure to cover your bases. Let's show some more slides over here, man. I'm interested to know what's going on. This.
Okay. Oh, wow. So essentially what's going on is there's some theories. No one's 100% sure except for the people that are inside, but it sure looks like the United States dollar is going to lose its global reserve currency status. It sure appears that way. A lot of this comes because of tensions between us and Russia, and we sort of cut Russia off. And when Putin said this, I really didn't understand what he meant, but he said the United States is sawing off the branch it's sitting on. And we say you cut off your nose to spite your face. And I was like, what is he talking about? The settlement, the beginning, it starts with oil. Oil is the kingpin on this. Right now, global oil transactions are settling in the US dollar. If
Hmm.
that changes to the Chinese yuan, then you're going to see the US dollar be threatened as the world reserve currency,
Big time.
which could cause massive inflation. Much worse than what we've experienced so far. It could. Doesn't mean that it 100% will, but I can tell you that I'm preparing for it personally, because if the dollar gets devalued or inflated, what does that mean? That means that everything priced in the dollar would go up. So your stocks would go up, gold would go up, your cost of a car would go up, cost of housing would go up. Everything that's priced in dollars, every asset that's priced in dollars would cost more dollars.
Yeah.
And so that would also include groceries and gasoline and all that stuff. So the dollar would get devalued. Now, doesn't appear to necessarily be a done deal type situation, but you can see there, that's a recent picture. Those guys are toasting something. What are they toasting? You know what I mean? What is going on?
Yeah.
And it just appears like, the US is sort of being like, okay, they've had their run. It's over. We're going to take control of things now. There's a pact that's been created between China and Iran. Saudi Arabia is on the table as well. Saudi Arabia is really the big one. That's probably the place in the world where there is the most money.
Yeah.
And they have, kind of lived in their own bubble for quite some time. And they've been settling everything, kind of falling in line with the US and US demands and using the United States dollar. Will they fall into this as well? Will there be a whole new banking system set up as a result? There's a lot of discussion about the possibility for this. So I just think it's important for people to understand, like we've seen some inflation, right? We've seen some inflation. We've seen what there could be a lot of inflation coming. If that comes, people who own assets will win and people who are in cash will lose. So I just thought the reason I wanted to send that to you, because I'm not doing the long form as much. And I think it's important to let as many people know as possible that the inflation, although the worst of it should be behind us, unforeseen, this is more than a black swan, worse than that.
Yeah.
Situation like that could cause inflation to be horrific for a short period of time. If that were the case, if that did happen, then being in cash would not be the place to be. And
Sure.
I just wanted people to know that that's a possibility right now, where it probably hasn't been for our entire lives to this point.
Well, and we obviously on my channel and your channel as well, we focus a lot on local market here in San Diego. Obviously, we want to know what's going on nationally, but when we're looking at like now national housing statistics, it doesn't always relate one-to-one to San Diego. In fact, it rarely does. So it's really important to know what's going on locally. But it's also good to get some insight and perspective as to what's going on globally, because we do kind of get stuck in this little bubble of thinking what's going on here. And you have to have a little bit bigger perspective as well. You also sent this other article, which I thought was very interesting. In Sweden and New Zealand, rising rates pushed home values down 14%, whereas in the US, this is stating that the housing price declines have only decreased 0.9%. And what I found very interesting about this is really what it gets into is the fact that, and we kind of forget this, that the US, the rest of the world is not like the US, where you have a 30-year fixed rate. So a lot of these places that have these very high price declines, their rates reset every 3 months. So there's a lot more fluctuations. And when rates increase a significant level, then people that currently own properties all of a sudden owe a bunch more on their mortgage. And of course, that's going to have a more drastic effect on things.
Yeah, there's a bunch of reasons why this graph is what it is. I think it's also good to just make note of that. Like, again, if you zoom out more, and I guess I'm more of the zoom out guy, but like if you zoom way out here, like literally looking globally, this is a reason why so many people in other countries want to come here, want to own real estate here, want to buy stuff here, why so much money flows into here. There's more, commercial grade investment in residential real estate. There's more, opportunities in real estate here, the growth in real estate here, people coming to America, that kind of thing. Just household formation here is through the roof versus what construction has been. And that right there is just sort of proof of some of the macro concepts you and I have talked about on this channel before about how we don't have enough houses.
Yeah.
Like literally the amount of households and the amount of houses are lopsided. And it's because of what happened in the crash and the lack of construction and production of new homes. And we're way behind, millions and millions of homes behind. So again, with those types of things being the reality in the data, it makes it almost impossible for there to be a housing crash because you have such a lack of supply. And what you really need for anything to crash is you need a significant excess of supply. And so even though some of these markets have experienced up to 14% downturns in different countries, we're at a 0.9, on that list from whatever that time frame was. It just goes again to show you, like, no matter what data we pull, even when we might be seeing a negative number, we're not seeing anything significant. We're not seeing that people don't want to own real estate. We're not seeing that people want to sell their houses and dump it and get rid of it. Just get rid of it. Get rid of it. That's not happening. It's the opposite. People are like, I won't sell for this much. Pound sand. Call me when it's 200 grand higher, and then I'll maybe think about it. That's where the market really is. So you have to ask yourself this, where do I want to be? Where do I want my family to be? How do we want to be positioning ourselves long-term financially? Because the numbers and the world will kind of scream at us and show us where the best place to be is. And I think it's my opinion and the opinion of many other people, probably 3 million plus of us, San Diego, this is the place. Of all the places to be, of all the places I've ever been, this is the best one. There's no place I'd rather be.
3.3 million people. I think that's as good of any segue into the end of this conversation. Move to San Diego, live your best life. I completely agree. There's a cost of living in such a wonderful place, and it can be very stressful and very challenging to get into this market. For some people, you're going to need to have a short-term rental option or a longer-term rental option before you can get your foot in the door on the housing market here. But I have no doubt personally that, and this is something that you say, you said a handful of times on my channel, and I keep repeating it because it is very insightful, but also very simple, is over time, real estate graphs are going to go up and to the right. The home values are going to go up and to the right. And we get so stuck on this conversation of what's going to happen in the next 6 months, what's going to happen in the next 12 months, what's going to happen in the next 18 months. We can't really project out much farther than that. However, if you're the greatest housing market collapse in U.S. history took 5 years to get through. 5 years. So if we see a major event where housing prices come even anywhere near the decline that they did in the 2008-2009 housing market collapse, then you have 5 years. You have 5 years that you're going to buy, you're going to put down more money into the equity of the house. So you're going to come out on top. Just don't plan on living in a house for 1 year unless you have the financial stability to take on that risk if, prices do come down a little bit in the next 12 months. But we get so stuck on the short term. Like, look at the long term. Like you said, this is for a lot of people. The value of living here is worth all the, all the kind of negotiations that you have to take with yourself as far as what you want and what you can afford. But yeah, I love it. Well said.
If you're living in a city that's more expensive than San Diego, you're overpaying. Because this is as good as it gets. So if you're paying more for something else, you're making a mistake. I'll just tell you right now. I've been to all those places. It's not as sweet as this place. So take a trip. See for yourself. You don't have to take my word for it.
Well, I appreciate you being on, Derek, and everyone that's watching. Go check out Derek's channel, Smarter San Diego. Tons of great information. You're putting out a lot of short form content right now, which I really appreciate as well, because I have a short attention span. I know a lot of people have a short attention span, and you break it down very, very simply, very, very quick. I appreciate you being on. If anyone watching is ever interested in buying or selling here in San Diego, myself, the Best Life Home Team, would love to help. And Derek is your man. Derek is your man if you need to get a loan. So thank you so much. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, brother.